And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The fallout from a controversial Rolling Stone profile of General Stanley McChrystal continues to intensify in Washington ahead of this morning's meeting between President Obama and General McChrystal, the top U.S. commander in Afghanistan. The New York Times reports McChrystal has prepared a letter of resignation, though President Obama has not made up his mind whether to accept it when they meet. ABC News reports Obama's asked the Pentagon to make a list of possible generals to replace McChrystal in case the president decides to fire him. In the Rolling Stone article, McChrystal and his top aides openly criticized the president and mocked several top officials. Joe Biden is nicknamed Bite Me. National Security Advisor General James Jones is described as a clown. Ambassador Richard Holbrooke is called a wounded animal. While McChrystal may soon be fired over his comments, less attention has been paid to his actual military record. Prior to his time in Afghanistan, McChrystal headed the Joint Special Operations Command, where he oversaw a secretive program to hunt down and assassinate suspected terrorists around the globe. As the top general in Afghanistan, McChrystal successfully lobbied President Obama to vastly expand the war last year. McChrystal also recently admitted U.S. forces are killing innocent Afghans at military checkpoints. He said, quote, "We've shot an amazing number of people, but to my knowledge, none has ever proven to be a threat." To talk more about General Stanley McChrystal, we are joined here in Detroit by Ann Wright. She's a retired Army colonel, former U.S. diplomat. She served as Deputy Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan, an embassy she helped open in 2002. We welcome you to Democracy Now!, Colonel Ann Wright. Talk about the Rolling Stone expose of General McChrystal.
Well, this Rolling Stone article will be read by every single person in the military, for sure. This is one of the stunning reports of the behind the scenes of the staff, the senior staff of a senior war general. And tragically, it's a very unflattering picture of the staff, a staff that seems to be fraternizing with the general, junior people, lieutenant colonels and colonels that seem to have a buddy-buddy access to the general, which on one level, with the Special Forces background that General McChrystal has, that may be kind of the culture there. But in the general military forces, you have to have generals that have good order and discipline in their units, and that require their senior officials to adhere to a code of silence, really, in public on any disagreements that you have with an administration. You do that behind the scenes, and to be talking with a Rolling Stones reporter in the manner in which these senior advisors have been doing is something of great concern to the military itself.
Talk about the divisions in between the military and the diplomatic end of what is going on, of dealing in Afghanistan.
Well, the military component of U.S. involvement in Afghanistan is it's just overwhelming. The State Department side, the diplomatic side, is minor, honestly, compared to what the military involvement is. As much as the State Department has tried to gear up for provincial reconstruction teams, it's still a very small element of it all. And if you look at really who the senior leadership of U.S. policy in Afghanistan, even the U.S. ambassador is a military person, three-star general, retired Karl Eikenberry. And of course, there's the rivalry really between two military officers, one who now has the hat of a diplomat, or the pinstripes of a diplomat, but essentially it's two military officers that are in charge of U.S. policies on the ground in Afghanistan.
Talk about McChrystal's history. For example, there are times, as the Rolling Stone article points out, that this general would have lost his job, that he has had many lives. Among them, in the representation and the dealing with the death of the football star Pat Tillman in Afghanistan and the lies that surrounded his death.
Yes. Well, General McChrystal was a part of the crew that decided that the death of Pat Tillman would be covered up, that the death by friendly fire of Pat Tillman would be portrayed as a heroic effort to protect his troops from Taliban and al-Qaeda attack, when in fact it was well known on the first day that they were killed by friendly fire. And General McChrystal was a part of the cover-up of awarding to Pat Tillman a Silver Star based on false information. And then later on, it was McChrystal that warned President Bush that he should be careful in how he characterized Pat Tillman's death.
Talk about the policy in Afghanistan. This is critical. For example, the division between McChrystal and Eikenberry, that famous moment when the cables came out, the secret cables that the ambassador, also a general, a retired general, Eikenberry, had sent to the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton.
Yes, and when the Obama administration was doing its lengthy look at what their policy should be on Afghanistan, General Eikenberry, now Ambassador Eikenberry, sent a series of 3 very, very pointed cables saying that increasing U.S. military presence in Afghanistan was not going to be what was needed by the U.S. government. And it came right at a time as virtually the decision was being made to go ahead and have more troops go in, and ultimately 30,000 were decided by President Obama. But that was after the leak of McChrystal's recommendation that up to 40,000 people be put in, essentially trying to press the president by this leak to commitment to a large increase in military forces, and then Eikenberry weighing in toward the last of it with 3 very, very important cables saying the military forces are not going to be it, that the government of Afghanistan is not a strong government, and that President Karzai himself is not what was called a strategic partner.
Where does this leave McChrystal, Eikenberry, the whole diplomatic side? Who's in charge of the strategy in Afghanistan? And that's the question we are left with.
Indeed, and by how the U.S. government operates, it's not the military commanders that are in charge of U.S. policies. It's they are a component of it, but in countries like Afghanistan, the U.S. ambassador, although in wartime, the military component certainly has a large element to play in it. But right now, the diplomatic role seems to be very low. You report that the British ambassador another British ambassador is on the verge of resignation over it, and this will probably be the 3rd British ambassador to Afghanistan that has had severe criticisms of U.S. policies and hence NATO policies in Afghanistan. And McChrystal is the head of not only U.S. forces in Afghanistan, but also of the International Security Assistance Force and the NATO forces that are there.
It's not only British officials and military personnel that have criticism of the United States. In the Rolling Stone piece, they quote a senior U.S. advisor saying the war is going worse than we realize, quote, if Americans pulled back and started paying attention to this war, it would become even less popular. That was the quote. Reporter going on to say still Pentagon officials are hoping that rather than a withdrawal of troops, the White House will approve a 3rd surge, that it's going worse than they thought.
Yes. Well, when you have the general himself saying that this much-touted offensive in Marjah is now a bleeding ulcer, when you have McChrystal himself saying that the offensive that was to take place in Kandahar needs to be postponed, you can see that the military strategy is definitely being relooked, that things are being postponed because there's not the cooperation on the ground of Afghan forces.
You were in Afghanistan. You were a fierce critic of the war in Afghanistan. A lot of the discussion about this Rolling Stone article about, catching the criticism of calling Holbrooke a wounded animal because he's always afraid of being fired, no telling what he will do, calling National Security Advisor Jones a clown, Biden, bite me. also talked about President Obama as being uncomfortable when he met with top generals and not being prepared when he first actually met with General McChrystal.
Well, that sort of analysis of your commander-in-chief and to have that coming out publicly is, you know, it is ultimately the criticism of a president that while one might hold those views personally, you certainly don't put them out to a reporter. You don't put them out so that the troops in the field will read the uncomfortableness that the senior leadership of the military has with their commander-in-chief. I mean, it's all based on good order and discipline.